Okay, so we are back at TR's garage. That's the Buy High Sell Low Club headquarters. And the last time we were here a couple of months ago, this bike was just a rolling chassis. This is a 1980 FLH. 1979, excuse me, 80 cubic inch.
Wiseco high compression pistons.
That was bought as a Sandy bike, unknown at the time, but when you went to look at it, the bike was full of water, right?
That's correct.
So, tell us what you did to the motor, performance-wise. What's in here?
I pulled the motor out, completely did the bottom end with S&S flywheels, standard stroke, S&S carburetor, high compression pistons, Wiseco's 9.5 to 1, Andrews B grind cam, installed a 5-speed transmission instead of the 4.
Tell us about the transmission. What is this a RevTech or what is it?
This is a S&S 5-speed transmission, all in one, so it's not a retrofit to a 4-speed.
So we would expect this to pair perfectly with the motor, right?
Absolutely. And new progressive shocks, new tires.
But what pipes are these? These are nice.
These are the stock FLH pipes in the 70s, from the mid-70s on up.
For real?
Yep. Those are the mufflers. And they're drilled through to get a little bit more performance out of them.
It's still an 80 inch, right? It's still a stock bore?
Still an 80 inch. La Paris seat, chrome oil tank, single fire ignition.
The sheet metal on the bike, this tank and these gauges, are these the right ones?
No, I had to put a new speedometer in order to function with the ratio of the 5-speed. Wouldn't happen with the 4-speed. And
you're very smart.
We did all the wiring. And new brakes, new electric, new alternator, high output. The tank is not an original tank. It had to be repainted due to the other tank being rusted out, the original tank.
So what is this tank? It is an FLH tank? It's just not from this bike?
It's a later FLH tank.
Okay.
Not the early one.
What about the chrome on the headlight nacelle? You did all that?
I had it re-chromed, yes. Instead of the aluminum, it has a banana brake in the front, chrome lower legs, vented brake discs, rotors, S&S, everything is S&S.
So you just put like $10, $20 into this bike, yeah?
Absolutely, and a new clutch, chain, rear sprocket. Pretty much from the ground up, so to speak.
What about the rims? These are nice and clean.
Rims are original.
Yeah?
They're very tough to find.
Yeah. Did they were on the bike or you had to go shopping for them?
They were on the bike, yes.
Yeah. So the brake is a stock brake. That's the original master cylinder, right?
That's correct.
All right.
Okay. One last thing.
Yep.
Jim's lifters and push rods and aluminum lifters, hydraulic lifters.
So this bike should have a little pop, right?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Let's fire it up and let's have a listen. Hey, we got the fire department doing their thing too. Looking good. Let's take it for a ride and see what it can do. we're back after a nice 75-mile ride on a beautiful fall evening up just up to Taconic here in southern New York State. And let me say first off that I love riding these big beefy heifers. Man, these FLs, that front end is probably the best looking front end in all of motorcycling. And this one, because of its non-stock properties, is a real rarity. Just a little look there of the fender light and the spots. So let me tell you what I thought about this bike. Remember, it's nowhere near stock. It's still an 80-inch motor, but it's a complete S&S motor, and it's paired with an S&S 5-speed transmission. First of all, let's go with the transmission. The bike is brand new. These were probably the first couple of miles that were really put on it. It was the first real ride the bike had, except for a couple of tune-up rides around the neighborhood. Starting off, going from first to second was a little difficult. It was a little stiff. Neutral was impossible to find. It seemed like neutral had taken the afternoon off. But then once we got rolling, second to third, third to fourth, they were kind of long, and fourth to fifth was short, easy to reach. The bike was real easy to upshift after second gear, and downshifted perfectly the whole time after that. And by the end of the ride, I guess we were breaking it in a little bit. Neutral was easy to find. Gobs of power, gobs of torque. Most of the time I was just doing about 75 miles an hour. The fastest I went on it was up to 85 miles an hour. There's no need to downshift on this thing, man. It's just got so much oomph. You just grab the throttle and go. I gave up downshifting shortly after I started my ride. But the bike's a beauty. It's a real pleasure to ride. That Electra saddle, it looks great on the bike, but I don't know if I'd want to spend all day in it. You know, when you're a little larger in the rear end. You might want something a little closer to stock.
I'll attest to that.
Yeah. And the mirrors, a little shake in the mirrors, they weren't a whole lot of use to me. I mean, I could see that something was behind me, but I wasn't, you know, some of the details were a little bit iffy. But the bike overall, man, that's a really good job, TR, considering you got this thing. The crankcase was full of mud on it. You built it all yourself here in TR's garage.
And I'm TR.
There's TR, total rebuild.
Total rebuild.
The man, the myth, the legend.
If I can't rebuild it, no one can.
You saw his 1974 FL a couple of months ago. We posted a little ride on that. This bike is completely different. This bike, it actually, I don't know what the difference in frames is between 1974 and 1979.
It's basic frame, same frame.
Yeah, because this bike seemed like it held the road a lot better and handled a little bit better than the 74.
New tires.
New tires, well, that could be it too. And, I mean, the difference in motors is, I mean, there's just no comparison. This thing has just got balls of power compared to the stock 74-incher. So what do you think? Done and dusted? On to the next?
On to the next bike.
Show us what you got on the rack. Triumph Trident T160. What year?
1975 T160, 3-cylinder with original Amel carbs. Motor is rebuilt from the ground up.
You did all this too, right?
All the wiring, all the tires, the ignition, electronic ignition. Converted a speedo to it. These are Norton, not Morris Mag wheels with Norton brakes.
Are these not Lester's, no?
These are not Lester's, no.
And what about that black and gold livery? What does that mean? That's not a Triumph
That's
livery.
not a stock color. That's the way I got the tank and applied it to the bike.
Didn't one
Kept
of
that black
Les
Harris look.
Yeah, that was Les Harris, right? That was his black and gold livery. From
There's
what I remember.
electric start and kick.
It's
The only model they made about 7,100 of these, and with kick and electric.
And there's the forward tilt of the
Motor's
T160.
tilted forward to angle to fit the starter.
And there's the
This here,
starter.
starter.
But the Hurricanes, they had the forward tilt motor as well too, but they were not. They were
That was
kick
the
only.
rocket motor
Yeah,
design.
they
So
had.
technically, this is a
It's not the same.
rodent.
It's not the same motor.
It's a rodent. It's a
Yeah,
rocket
yeah.
motor with a for a Triumph.
Yeah, yeah.
And they call it the rodent, not the Trident.
Ah,
They use the rodent, the rocket motor in this because of the tilted angle of the cylinders, and they had room to put the electric start in.
yeah, because they were able to get the starter in.
Fit it
Okay,
in.
so that's it. So we're going to ride that one next time. I'm done for the evening. That's my Moto Guzzi right there. Eldorado 1400. Got to ride this whenever I need to get somewhere. Da-da-da-da, when you can't rely on the old stuff. But that's a whole different story. So from TR's Garage, another successful project completed. On to the next one.
Thank you.
Thank you.